Hello everyone, in this video we are going to discuss how can we improve our calculation and tactics. Basically we are going to solve some chess puzzles on chess.com Puzzle Rush Survival, and the task is to solve as many puzzles as possible. Basically in the long run, calculation and tactics is a very essential skill that every player must know. So in order to improve your chess calculation, make sure to watch it till the end. So I don't want to waste any further time. You guys can pause the video or do it with me. So let's start. So we have the first puzzle, so I can simply capture the rook and it's a checkmate. So basically in Puzzle Rush, the puzzles start with extremely easy and eventually the puzzle gets harder. So as we are going to solve the puzzles are eventually going to get harder. So the best way to solve any chess tactic here is there are 3 steps: check, capture, threat. Always look for first checks. If checks are not working, look for captures. If captures are not working, look for threats. So here check is working and it's a mate. I can capture the rook, it's a mate. I can give a check and it's a mate. I can give a check and knight f3 is a checkmate. Queen into f7 is a checkmate. Queen to f2 is a checkmate. I can push my pawn and eventually somehow after making the queen, the b7 square is covered, so we are going to win the game. The king goes over here and rook h2 is a checkmate. Bishop g5, and now here queen d1 is a checkmate because the knight was protected by the bishop. b2, and here queen a4 is a checkmate in one move. Okay, now we can capture the, okay, you see, now always first look for checks. So bishop d4 is a check, but what happens, the white bishop will simply capture the bishop. Second option, which is captures, look for captures. Can I capture anything? Yeah, I can capture the bishop. The opponent captures the rook and now I'm having this check, bishop d4, the same process, and I win and I would be a piece up with a completely winning position. Okay, so here we have g6. Look for checks. Can I take queen g6, f g6? No, it's not working. Captures, any captures working up in this position? Knight into f7, knight into e6, I don't think. Coming to the third step, which is threats. Queen h3 threatening queen h7 checkmate. The rook move takes and queen f7 is eventually a checkmate. Yeah, that's a mate. So we have knight to c3 and now bishop f5 is a checkmate. Queen f7 is a checkmate. And okay, once again starting with checks, rook c3, maybe queen e1, maybe queen e3. I don't think any of these works because the opponent will simply capture it and nothing is happening. Coming to the second step, which is captures. Can I capture anything? Can I capture the knight? That makes sense. I can capture the knight because the opponent cannot capture it because the pawn is pinned. So let me capture the knight, and that was the right move. Okay. So once again starting with checks, a4 is a checkmate. King over here. I can push the pawn. The black's pawn are going this way, so I can push the pawn. And now I can push this pawn, the knight takes, and I can push this pawn, and that's the win. So let's do it. Basically the knight cannot stop both the pawns. That was the whole idea. f4. So now can I give checks? No, I cannot give checks. Coming to the second step, captures. Can I capture anything? I can capture the knight. The opponent will capture the rook, and then I can capture the rook because currently the rook is protected by the knight. So yeah, this is winning. Yeah, for sure. So we have knight to f5 and now knight into f2 is a checkmate. Okay, h into g6 and here rook h3 followed by rook h8 was a checkmate. Okay, take. So coming to the checks, rook h1 check, and now I want to give a check and I can get another rook, and that's a mate. Knight f5 capturing the pawn, and that's a mate. Rook takes. So king f4, the opponent can go like this, and basically it's a race. So here the most easiest way to calculate these stuff here is to simply calculate the move. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. So basically we are playing first. So basically when we are going to make the queen, white's pawn will reach on the 7th rank. So basically we can stop the pawn, and that's winning. Yeah, as I said. So we have knight to e6, and now coming to the checks. Queen e8 is a check, the knight goes back. Can I push? Attacking the queen and also threatening many things. That makes sense. So let's actually go for that. And okay, trading of the queens makes sense, but first I will capture the pawn. That makes sense. The queen will run away, and that should be winning. That should be winning, I believe. Let me do it. Yeah, if the queen captures it, we can capture the bishop, and we are having too much pawn extra, and that's winning. So here, queen into bishop. What is wrong with queen into bishop? I can capture the bishop, and nothing is happening. The rook attacks the queen, but I can move my queen, and that makes sense to protect the knight. And if b3, I can capture the pawn, and the rook is also hanging, so that's winning. Yeah. So queen to c2. And now looking for checkmates. Yeah, rook e7 is a checkmate. Queen to c1, and now where's the checkmate? So queen. Okay, so now there are checks available. Queen e7, queen h4. Queen e7, the king can run away. Queen h4, I don't see a way for the white king to run away. That makes sense. Knight d5. So knight d5. Is there any way? So rook h8, king f7. Anyway, rook h7. Looking for checks. Okay, so maybe rook h8, king f7, rook f8, king f8, and any checks available? I don't see it. I can play rook h8, king f7, rook h7, the king move, and I can give a check with the queen, and I can capture the rook. That makes sense. Yeah, let's do it. And the rook was hanging, so basically in the end of the day, I'm winning material or the king is getting mated. That's the whole idea. So we have king to g5, and now checks are not available. Captures, no real captures are available. Coming to the third step, threats. Can I impose any threats? Yeah, rook h2, rook h5 would be a mate, and actually black cannot stop it, and that's a mate. That's a fourth mate. Okay, so we have knight to d5, and now okay, I thought there was a rook on e1 and I can mate him via rook e8, but that's not happening. So here, knight e6 check, king goes to c8. Queen c7 is not working because the knight is covering the square, but I believe queen e8 is a checkmate. Yeah, that makes sense. So king to h1, and now king h1, and now what? So maybe queen d6 followed by queen h2. That's the mate. That makes sense. Yeah, takes, and basically queen h2 is, in the end of the day, that's a mate. So here, checks. There are two checks available, queen into f2 or bishop into f2. Bishop into f2, the king will run away, and I don't see the mate. Queen into f2, rook into f2, and rook d1, and that's a mate for sure, because the rook is pinned. Basically, because the rook is pinned, that's a mate. Yeah, so we have now the d2, pushing the pawn, and now queen b6, king a8, queen a6, b6, rook a6, and that's a mate. Yeah, rook a6, and that's a mate. So knight to d4, stopping checkmate on g7. That makes sense. First, looking some checks, maybe queen g6, queen g7, but I don't see the way because the opponent will simply capture it. Captures. Any captures available in the position? Bishop into knight, rook into pawn, bishop into knight, queen will capture the bishop. Okay, and I don't see much. Rook into c7, opponent will simply capture it, and once again, nothing is happening. Coming to the third part, which is threats. Can I impose any particular threats in the position? Any sort of threats work? Let's think. So I can push the pawn, attack the queen. The queen will run away. I can actually capture the pawn. That's capture available, and I want to capture the knight. And that actually makes sense. That was actually wrong. I'm pretty surprised. What could have been the right move? If you know the answer, please tell me in the comments. Okay, so we have king g2, and now just rook d2 check. The king goes anywhere, and eventually I can check him, and that's a mate. Yeah. So g3. Now I can either push. I can get the king. If I push, okay. If I push, I can stop it. If I push, the king will come closer. I can push. Basically, if I bring the king will enter the square, and that should be draw. So I need to push. The king comes, and now I can still push the pawn. I will protect the pawn from becoming the queen, and that's the win. Yeah. So we have knight to c5 check. And now this is actually a mate after king f7, rook g6, edge g6, edge g6, and that's a mate. Yeah. So we have rook to g4. It's white to play, and yeah, what could be the move? Looking for some checks. Rook into bishop, king moves. If king goes over here, I can capture the pawn. The king goes over here, and where's the mate? Where is the mate? I can at least give a check. The king goes back, I can mate him in one move. The king have to go on g6. I can capture on d6 with the e6 with the queen and give a check. The king is forced to go on h5. And now where's the mate is the big question. White is actually threatening, black is threatening to mate us. So we need to mate him first before he do. Okay, what could be the winning blow in the position? I can capture the rook, that's for sure. I can capture the bishop, king g6. And where's the continuation? I want to play queen e6. The king goes over h5. And then what? And then where's the win? Where's the win? I can actually give a check and I can capture the pawn. That makes sense. So let's do it. And basically I'm a knight up. So yeah, that makes sense. So okay, opponent played queen into c3, and now how can I mate him? Queen h6 check, king goes to h4, queen h5, and that looks like mate. Yep. So f3, and yeah, once again starting to look for checks. Maybe queen h4, bishop b4, queen d1. Okay, so starting with queen h4, getting the queen. If knight g3, I can take it, takes, and that's winning. Bishop f2, I can still take it, and that's a mate. Knight g3 takes and bishop f2, that makes sense. But then there should be something. Let's see how can we play. Queen h4, knight g3, bishop f2. Want to capture this. We are actually a piece down already, so we need to play a bit more precisely. Queen h4, knight g3, bishop f2, bishop b4, c3, and maybe queen b4, c3, queen takes the pawn. If bishop takes, queen c3, king move, maybe over here. Not quite sure, but I believe queen h4, like that's my feeling. So I'm gonna go with my feeling, and I can capture the knight. That makes sense. Bishop f2, and how to continue now in this position? That's actually the main question now. Let's see. Bishop b4 or queen b4. That's the two move that comes in my mind. Bishop. Okay, if I play queen b4 first, queen b4 c3. The knight is hanging. I can play queen b2, bishop g3, queen c3, king e2. And after king e2, how to play? How to play after king e2? Maybe I can even get the rook in. That makes sense. So let me play queen b4. Queen into b2 should be the move. Queen c3, and that's winning. Yeah, perfect. So we have queen to c6, queen into c6, threatening mate in one. So first looking for checks, knight f6, knight h6, two options available. Knight h6 looks a bit more tempting to me. If the king goes, we can give some discoveries. If it takes, we can give a check, capture some pawns, and that should eventually be a mate. Knight h6, queen g6, queen f6, and that's eventually a mate. Yeah. So h5, and now we can push the pawn to h6, and then we can capture the knight. That makes sense. That looks winning. If I captured the knight directly with the idea of threatening mate in one, that makes sense as well. And that actually makes more sense. Okay. So now we have king h5. And now there are checks available, 3 checks available, which is playing f4, giving a check, playing g4, and also playing some sort of queen h8. If queen h8, forcing black to play bishop h6, pushing the pawn, the king runaways, and I don't see the mate. If I play g4 check, takes like fg4, king h4, and that looks a mate. Yeah, that's a mate after queen h8, bishop h6, queen h6 is a mate. And if the king goes directly, that's also a mate. Yeah. So that's winning for sure. So you see, basically it's all about check captures threat once again. So we have king b1, looking for checks, rook d1 check, king b2, starting to look for checks, any checks available in the position. Okay, there are checks available, but I'm not sure if these checks are working. Okay, so basically king b2, I'm having bishop c1, the king goes back, and that's a mate. Yeah. Okay, so we have king d5. Okay, so that's a one move mate here. We have queen e5. So basically, eventually the puzzles at some point for one or two puzzles get much easier, which helps us to get motivation. So basically it's an algorithm of chess.com, which makes sense. So queen a2, and now there are some heavy discoveries that are possible in the position. Let's see. Basically there are many ways to check the black king. So this is actually what makes chess even more fun, because there would be multiple ways to give checks. Okay, so if I just move the bishop, it would be a check. So basically the king would be having only one square remaining in the position. So how can I mate him? Just checkmate. Okay, so capturing the bishop, if he captures with the king, that's a mate. If he plays king d8 or king d7, queen e7 check, the king is forced to go on c8, knight to d6 check, king b8, and eventually queen b7 is a mate. Yeah, so that's a mate. Yeah, so bishop to e6, and now how to play. Looking for checks, 1, 2 checks available in the position. If I start with rook b1 check, king g2, knight f4, and eventually capturing the bishop, that is winning. If the opponent plays king to e2, and still I can capture the bishop, that makes sense, and I'm basically a piece up with a completely winning position. So king c6, and now how to play. King c6, we have king c6. So now once again looking for checks, bishop e8 check, and many things are actually covered. So basically the king is only having one square, which is on b6, and yeah, king b6. Okay, so basically bishop e8, king b6, I can play a5 check, the king is forced to go on a6, and queen b5 is a mate. Yeah, so that makes sense. Let's do it. Yeah, so that's a mate. So bishop c3. So basically, like, there are times when you go for a wrong move. So basically it takes time. When there are many checks available, you go, like, people go for looking for like not the best options, but eventually if you calculate patiently, precisely, you are simply going to get the answer. So we have bishop c3 attacking the queen. Once again looking for checks. Rook into rook is a check, knight to f2 is also a check available in the position. So if we have rook into rook check, rook into knight f2 check, the king move, we can capture the queen. The opponent is forced to take the rook, then queen d1, bishop e1, queen e1, rook f1, queen f1, and that's mate. Okay, if I play knight f2 after rook f2, I can win the exchange, but you must see that white is already having an extra rook, so that makes sense to take this, and eventually mate. Checkmate. Yeah, so we have bishop to f6. Once again looking for checks available, 2 checks majorly I am able to see. Even queen g4 makes sense, but getting more pieces makes sense. So yeah, rook g4 check, the king goes over here, h8, queen f6, rook f6, and rook e8 is checkmate. If king goes to f7, queen e6 is a checkmate. Queen e6, the king can run away, so that makes sense. Rook g4. Okay, bishop g7 was the move that I missed. Yeah, so I'm feeling pretty bad, but okay. Rook into bishop, king e2, rook e7 check, the king is forced to move, and that's a mate. The king goes back, and that's a mate. So yeah, that's a win. And wow, okay, once again I missed king g7. What's the right way to play? Now? I cannot capture the pawn because the queen is covering the h7 square. So okay, so queen e6, king h8, queen e5, and eventually queen g7 is a mate. So that makes sense. So there are times when you go wrong, but but you need to keep believing in yourself and play the move that you believe in. So we have king to g4 in this position, and now how to play king g4, and now how to play. Looking for checks once again. Rook into g2 is a move. Bishop into g2. Queen c4 check. Okay, that makes sense. And we can capture the rook, and that looks winning. So okay, white decided to move the king, and now what? Now how to play? I can once again go for rook h2 check. The king goes to g3, and then once again how to play? Even rook g4 check, but nothing is happening. Opponent's threat could be to capture the pawn, maybe even get the rook in at some point if I try to move the queen away. So I need to be a bit more precise in my calculation. Let's see. So maybe queen c8 with the idea of checkmating in one move. That makes sense. Any other way. Let's see. If I play actually rook g5, king g5, and queen e7, I win the rook. That makes sense. Yeah, so that's winning. Okay, so we have king f4 now. King f4. Okay. So looking for capture. Okay, looking for checks. Rook f3 is a check. Basically 4, 5, 6 checks available. Queen h4 looks the most pleasant one because nothing is hanging over there. Everything is covered, well covered. And yeah, white would be having two moves: king f5 or king e5. If king f5, king e5, I'm having queen g5. King f5, queen e5. King goes to e4, and not sure. Okay, king f5. Okay, queen h4, king f5. Okay, then we can capture the pawn on f6, giving a check. The king goes back. Queen e5 check is a checkmate. The king goes over here. The queen g5 is a mate. Yeah. Okay, g4 was the move. Once again, I missed it. I did not saw that this coming. Okay, so whatever. Queen f6. If king e5. Okay, if king e4, queen e5 is a mate. The opponent is forced to go back with king g3, and then let's see. Queen e5 check. The king goes over here, and that's a mate. So okay, it's queen f6, king g3, queen e5, maybe king g2, and once again the mate is missing. Okay, it makes sense. Okay, we can even go for playing queen g5 check, but the king can run away in that particular variation, I believe. So queen f6, king g3, and now where's the win? Where could be the win? So maybe rook g1. Not sure. You see how the position, like whenever there are multiple options available in the position, you have to think. You need to play precise, and you need to find the best move. Okay, so let's see. So queen f6 makes sense. If king e4, queen e5 is a mate. Queen f6, king g3. And then how? Then how to play? I want to. Okay, actually, the opponent cannot give us directly check or checkmate or something. So I can capture the pawn, king g3, queen e5 check. The king goes back. I can even get the queen in, and that looks winning. Yeah, that is winning. Finally finding the right answer. So we have queen to d1. Now looking for some checks idea. So one check. So 1, 2, 3 checks available in the position. Queen e1 doesn't make any sense, so let's remove it. If I try to trade off the queen, can I mate him? Okay, I don't see the mate. I don't see a particular way to mate him. If I capture the bishop with the queen into queen, and is there a mate? No, once again I don't see a mate. Coming to the third option, maybe rook into pawn. That's a check. That makes sense as well. If the bishop captures the rook in the position, then is there any particular way to mate him? No, once again I don't see the mate. Okay, if I capture the rook, if I capture the bishop with the rook, the queen is forced to capture the rook, and then can I mate him? I can give a check. but that's only a check. So first let's try to calculate the material. I'm having two bishops, two pieces. Okay, so basically rook for a rook. That makes sense. And basically the odds are I'm having a rook for the two minor pieces. So if I just trade off the piece and if I try to capture the bishop, that is good enough to win, I believe. That's one way. And I believe that just looks winning. If I just takes and takes, I'm having 6 pawns. Black is having 5 pawns. Okay, knight into pawn, but that's not working. I can simply move the rook, and I'm pretty happy. Yeah. So you see, many times the position is extremely simple, where you can just simply trade off the piece. You need to first calculate the material on the board when you have to go for that decision. Calculate the material. If you see, okay, you're just materially up, simplify the position. It's a win-win scenario. So we have king to g2. King g2. Now looking for checks. Rook g3 check. The king is forced to go on h2 or h1. It doesn't really matter. But how can I mate him then after that? Maybe let's check king h2. Rook g3, king h2. And then what? Then how can we give? Can I give any checks? I don't see a check. King h2. And how can I play? What could be the best way to play? Okay, I'm not getting mated, but queen h4 are some threats that are coming in the position that I'm not a big fan of. So okay, first of all, I'm not even having the queen on the board, but there is something interesting that I've seen in the position now. Knight f4 check, which is a check available in the position. The opponent is not really having any move. Like if king goes to g2, g1, I don't like the move because I can even get my one more piece, knight to e2, and that's a mate. The opponent is forced to capture the knight. Bishop f1 is a check. King g1 and knight e2 is a mate. So yeah, so that makes sense. So you see how by following just check capture threat ideology, we can even solve any particular position. So rook h7 is a check. The king is forced to go on g8, and can I mate him there? Okay, I can play. Okay, what can I play? I can play maybe rook f8 check, rook f8, maybe rook h8, king h8, and queen f8. So that's a mate. Yeah, that should be a mate, because if I first start with rook h8, the opponent can capture it, and after rook f8, the king can move. So rook f8, rook f8, rook h8, king f7, and still just capturing the. Okay, once again, two options available. If I capture with the queen, king e6, and what? King e6, and then how to play? King e6. Okay, if I take with the rook, all pieces are not coming in the game. So queen into f8 makes the maximum sense. The king goes to e6, bishop f5, and that's a mate. Yeah, getting every piece into the game, and that's a win. Okay, so king e6. So first move that comes in my mind is bishop c8 check, because if queen c8, I can give a check and I can capture the queen. So bishop c8 check. The king is having two options. If king over here, I can give a check and I can capture the queen. So basically, after bishop c8, black is having the only move, which is king e5. After king e5, can I play something that make my opponent go loose? Okay, so there is a move which is a check. Okay, there are options. There are multiple options available in the position. You can see, guys, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 options, like 10 ways to give checks. So this is what makes it even harder. There is only one right move available in the position. So bishop c8 is the move that comes in my mind. King e5, and then how can I resume? I'm thinking of queen e7. If the king goes over here, I can capture the knight, and I'm pretty happy. Sort of happy. Looking for some other ways, but bishop c8 looks like the move. King e5, and then how can I continue the position? How can I? I can actually play king king e3 with the idea of queen e5 as a mate. That actually makes sense. Perhaps king e5 can capture the bishop. And that is not actually losing because I'm having queen check, check. Okay, but check, the king goes over here. And that's, I'm not winning the queen. Yeah. So let's see, bishop c8, king e5, king e3, queen c8. Any particular move that helps me win the game? Let's see. So queen f4, king d5, queen e4, king f5, queen c2, king move, again capture the queen, and that's winning. And if the opponent plays bishop c8, king e5, king e3, e5, d5, then how can I win the game? Then I think just queen f4 is a mate. Yep, this is the right continuation. Yeah, as I said, it's all about calculation. Check captures threat. Just follow these rules and you are good to go. So now this is a very extremely easy puzzle, which is just queen into rook, rook into queen, rook into rook, king into, knight check, and I can capture the queen. And that's good enough to win. Check, 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 and capture the queen. Basically, I have counted the material. I was having an extra rook, which is a completely winning position. So now giving a check. So c3 makes sense. c3 attacking the knight and also the bishop. If opponent takes the pawn, then okay, then how can I continue? I can at least trade off the queen. So that makes sense. That makes sense to trade off the queen, do a long castle, and capture the rook, and capture the knight. Yeah, that was winning. So rook c6. After rook c6, how can I win? So yeah, one move that I'm able to see in the position here is queen a1 check. The king is forced to go on g2, and now queen to a8. Basically, the opponent is kind of forced to move the rook, and I can capture the knight, and that should be good enough to win. Yeah, that's winning. So we have solved 60 puzzles successfully, and I'm pretty happy about it. So let's do it one more. So opponent has just played f into e3. So how can we continue the position? I can capture the pawn with the queen, giving a check. The king is forced to go on d1. I can play queen e2 check. The king goes to c1. I can play rook f1, queen f1. The king goes to, on the second rank, basically king c2, and maybe rook e2. The king goes to b3, and I don't see it working. So let me change some tactics. Okay, maybe just capturing the pawn, giving a check. The king goes back, and if I don't give any particular checks to my opponent in the position and just play rook d8, maybe it's working, or maybe it's not working. Another option here is to capture the pawn and get the rook in, with the idea of simply mating him in many possible ways, which is one way to play. But the knight goes to c3, and I don't see a way because every square is kind of covered up by the knight or the queen. So queen e3 is for sure. King goes to d1. Rook can come to f2. And then what? Okay, rook f2, knight c3. It's not working. So another way I'm able to see here is queen e3, king d1. And maybe, if I'm not wrong, rook f1, queen e2, king c1, queen f1. The king goes to c2. And I cannot capture the rook because my rook is also hanging. So I need to first give a check. To be true, I want to mate him. So maybe rook e2. But if you have already calculated this particular line, the king goes to b3. And there are no many checks available in the possession. And that looks fine for white to me, at least. So queen e3 is a move that definitely makes sense. Another move that makes sense, maybe rook f2. King f2, queen e3. The king is forced to go on f1, and that should be winning now. Rook f8, queen f3, takes. And then somehow it should be fine for black, but I don't see the win. Yeah. Okay, let's see any other way. Queen e3, king d1. Are there any good ways to mate our opponent in this position? Queen check, queen e2 check, king goes to c1. Maybe now rook f2 makes sense. There are two ways to mate, and I don't see the way for the opponent to defend all the two mates. So maybe this is the right way, and that was the right way. Okay, so finally we have crossed 61 puzzle, doing one wrong. Okay, so we have king f7 in the position, king f7, and now how can we play? Queen g6 is a check that is available. Queen g6, the king is forced to go on e7. We can capture the pawn, give a check. The rook can come on f7, and that doesn't look like a mate. Another option here is rook f6 is a mate. Rook f6 check, king f6. Once again, I don't see the mate. So basically, queen g6, king e7 makes sense. Queen g7, rook f7, stopping the mates. And now how to play? Okay, basically the opponent cannot mate us because there are no direct checks available to our king that can help the opponent to mate us. So basically we can at least check at least one move to not give check but to create threats, and then we can eventually win. So let's see how can we create threats. So queen g6 definitely makes sense. King e7 for sure. And now maybe capturing the pawn, rook f7. If I go with rook h7 at the place of queen g7, the opponent can still play rook f7. Rook g7, maybe rook comes. And in that particular case as well, I don't see the mate. So queen g6, rook f6, like any of these two moves should be the move, I believe. Rook f6, king f6. The king is going back, giving a check, so maybe it should not working. So queen g6 is the only option that I'm able to see. Queen g6, king e7. And then how can we resume the position? We can capture the pawn on g7, rook f7, rook into f6, rook f6 with a check, but rook f6 with a check, it's not working. So queen g6, king e7. We can capture the pawn, the rook goes to f7, and I don't believe that's working. Maybe can I? Okay, maybe queen g6, king e7, rook h7, rook f7, rook g7. If rook g7, queen g7, and that should be a mate. Okay, so queen g6 for sure, and now rook h7, rook f7, rook g7, rook g7. If rook h7, rook f7, rook g7, rook f8, we can get another rook. So finally rook takes, queen takes, and that should be a winning. That should be a winning blow. So yeah, once again it was the right decision. Okay, so we have d4 now. So now checks available in the position, maybe rook f6, king f6, rook f1. The king is having three options. If the king goes to g5, queen e5 check, king g6, queen f5, maybe king h6, and I don't see the mate over there, but I believe at some point we can get the knight in, and that makes sense. If I look for something else, maybe rook e7, the black can simply capture the rook, and that doesn't make any sense. So the only move that makes sense here is to capture the knight, giving a check. If queen f6, rook f1, queen f1, and that should be good for us. Okay, if rook f6, queen f6, rook f1, pawn checks the knight. We can take it, or we can even give a check first. The king move, we can take this, takes, and that is winning for sure. That's winning for sure. The opponent is forced to take with the king, and now there are moves available in the position. First, rook f1 is the most tempting offer. Let's do it. Okay, this is not working. Rook f1, rook. Oh, sorry. First, queen c4 check. The king move. Rook into f6, king f6, queen f6, queen c3. The king move, and then to capture the bishop. Okay, so I basically did a bit wrong. Yeah. Basically, it was the right puzzle, but we went wrong. Yeah, by doing some mouse click errors. Basically, miss brain functioning. So rook f4, and now after rook f4, how can we play? Rook f4 with the idea of maybe some checks available in the position. If we want to mate him, I want to move the bishop and mate him. So one move that makes sense here is just rook d6 with the idea of mating. The opponent can play the move bishop f4 check, but I don't see that makes a difference. I can takes and king to f5. Yeah, this is just winning, right? I can take this, and I can play king f5, knight f3. That it should be winning. Check and capture the bishop, and that's it. Yeah, perfect. So we have queen g1 check. King f3 makes sense. King f3. Yeah, king f3, queen d1, bishop e2. There are no checks available in the position. If king goes to e2, that actually also makes sense. King e2, my bishop f4. What is the threat that we are creating in the position? Not sure. King f3, if bishop f4, we can give a check. That is an option. I'll capture the bishop. Okay, king f3, king e2. There is a debate which move can be the right one. King f3, bishop f4. And then what? Shall I start with a check? But after king d8, there are no checks available in the position anymore. If I take it, the opponent can give a check. I can block it. Okay, there are options available in the position. King f3, bishop takes, and I can capture the knight. That makes sense. Because then what is happening? I'm also threatening a mate, and I am also threatening to capture the bishop. If opponent gives a check, I can capture the bishop. That makes sense, yeah. And now I can capture the bishop. Actually, not so soon. I can even play a check, and I can capture the bishop. Even that makes sense. Even that move makes sense. Or I can even give a check and capture the bishop like this. That actually makes a bit more sense. Yeah. 64, okay. So now we have c6 by white. And now how can we play? I can move the knight, I can play the move bishop f3 with the idea of pushing the pawn to h2, and that should be eventually a mate. So yeah, let's see. Knight g5. Okay, knight g. Okay, the opponent's pawn is only 2 steps away from being a queen. If we want to do anything, we have to do it fast. So what could be the ideas? I want to. Okay, one idea here is to play h2, bishop h3, and that's a mate. h2, if opponent takes the bishop, takes, and he simply pushes the pawn. That looks winning for him. So the other way is to maybe just pull the knight back If he takes, it's losing for him. If he takes the bishop, we can actually then take with the knight. If he pushes, we give a check, and that's a win. So that looks winning. Bishop f3 check. Bishop f3 check is winning. I'm not. Bishop f3 check. If the king moves, it's the queen. If opponent takes with the rook, we can take with the king. Opponent pushes the pawn, and once again, where's the win? Okay, so I can play. Okay, the position is a bit tricky now. Bishop f3, rook f3, king f3, c7, and that looks winning for him. Yeah, that definitely looks winning for him now. If I don't put the piece in between, I can play knight over here. But what's the plan? He can push the pawn and he can make the progress. I can play the king attacking the rook. That makes sense. I can play the king. Maybe on f2. Okay, but okay, king f4 should be the move. Yeah, protecting the knight as well. The rook goes back. And now how to play? And now I can actually capture the pawn, because if it takes, it's winning. Takes, it should be winning, though it's a opposite color square, but that should be winning. Yeah, 65 puzzles. Okay, so we have queen d4 over here now. Queen d4. So looking for checks. Checks are not available in the position. Second idea here is to go for some capturing threats. Can I capture anything? I can capture the bishop. Counting the material is even. I can capture the bishop. What can the opponent play? Opponent can play the move. I'm not able to see actually to be true. Maybe just rook c1, and with the idea of rook c8, that makes sense. If I try to... Okay, this position is actually way tricky, because there are no obvious moves that comes in my mind. I need to do everything that is based on calculation. That's it. Capturing the bishop looks like the intuition move. Rook c1, threatening rook c8, and then how can I respond? I can pull the knight back. That makes sense. And that was actually a wrong move. So basically all time second, average time per puzzle was 42 seconds. Okay. So, okay, the idea was quite simple. I wanted to take the rook and also attack the queen. That makes sense. But that was the wrong move. Okay, let's try to analyze and let's see where did we went wrong. Okay, so the first puzzle, knight d4. What could be the right move in this particular position? I can push the pawn, attack the queen, and yeah, that's just winning. Okay, I can take over here, and I'm winning a piece. Yeah. Okay, coming to the second position, we actually found the move. Takes queen check first. So sorry, first getting the rook, and now giving a check, and now capturing the queen, and takes, and that's winning. Yeah. Coming to the third position, that we went wrong. First capturing the bishop was right. Rook to c1, and now what's the winning blow? Maybe just pulling the rook back and sacrificing the queen for the two rooks. That makes sense. So yeah, that's exactly how we solve the puzzles. So yeah guys, that's it for today. We have solved 65 puzzles, which I'm pretty proud of, to be true. Next time we are definitely going to do more. So I hope that this video helped you guys to help in your calculation, how good chess players calculate in chess. They follow check, capture, threat, every possibility, and starting with the most obvious possibility to the most least obvious possibility. So yeah, I hope that this video was entertaining, full of fun. So if it was, make sure to like and subscribe. If you are new to our channel, make sure to subscribe the channel for more interesting learning chess concepts like this. If you want any particular video on any particular topic, you guys can tell me down in the comments below, and I'm definitely going to come up with that particular video on. So I don't want to waste. So basically, thank you for watching, and I'm going to see you soon. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching One Shot Chess. Bye bye.